You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Haunted Histories on Parasearch Radio. I'm Penny, in case you didn't know. Yep, the one, the only. It's a good job there is only one of me because, well, I don't think the world could cope with any more. Did you listen to last week's show we did on the Villisca Axe House? What do you mean you didn't? Panic ye not. It's on Spreaker and YouTube waiting for you, as are all the Parasearch shows that we do. Don't say we don't do anything for you. You can download them, listen to them on your daily commute, or even to drown out the sounds of your kids until the Easter holidays are finished. I don't mind. Firstly, sombre news, sad news, this week with the passing of the legendary Guy Playfair. Some of you may know who he is. He was one of the people fundamental in the Enfield hauntings, but to show our regards for this amazing man of para-research, we'll be replaying our KTPF Reload show, which was an interview with Guy tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Make sure you're there to listen. On a lighter note, another Parasearch competition! Da-da-da! This one is a tarot reading with our very own Kerry Greenaway. Go to our Facebook page and check it out. She's a very talented and spiritual lady, that KG. Wish I could enter, to be quite honest with you. So, tonight, shall we start? Well, we're going to somewhere. It's a building. It's in Norwich, in Norfolk, where I grew up. Not in this building, but Norwich. And it's known as Strangers' Hall. Its roots trace back to around the early 14th century, or possibly even earlier, with the Undercroft having been built in the 1320s to soar and sell goods for one Ralph de Middleton. Remember that fact when I talk about paranormal experiences, that it may have been where money was exchanged, or even counted. Its history as a building is one of variety, if nothing else. The Great Hall being built for William Barley in the 1400s. Barley was a cloth merchant, and it's highly likely that it would have been used for entertaining clientele and showing off his wares. One of the biggest pieces of the hall's historical jigsaw came in the 16th century, when Thomas Southerton took over the building. Now, Southerton was he was an entrepreneur. Yes, he was an entrepreneur, but he was also the mayor of Norwich. And he is actually, hi Kerry, he is actually fundamental as to why this beautiful edifice became known as Strangers' Hall. More of that later for you. So, I've got to keep a straight face when I say this. One Francis Cock took over in 1627. Why do they do that to me? I'm trying to stay... It's a good job I'm sober tonight. Good job I haven't had a glass of wine yet. I wouldn't be able to say that with a straight face. Anyway, he took over in 1627, and he made his mark by the inclusion of the Walnut Room. Remember that one as well. He too was a mayor of Norwich, which is very sort of definite theme to the building for the next 150 years or so. The next person... Hi, Gem! The next person of note we come to is Sir Joseph Payne and his wife Emma. Now, Payne was also mayor of Norwich from, I think it's 1660 to 67, and he was also heavily involved in the Civil War of 1642 to 1651. Although his loyalties were more to the royals... I nearly said royalties were more to the loyals then. His loyalties were more to the royals than the parliamentarians, which was very unusual for East Anglia, which definitely swayed more towards the Roundheads. But Payne was a popular character and managed to escape any kind of lynching by the public around him. He was imprisoned in jail for a short while after refusing to be moved on his beliefs, and his siding with the king proved fruitful for him in the long run. When the Civil War ended and Charles II was placed on the throne. Payne took donations from everyone that he could and rode to London on the 24th of July 1660 to give £1,000, as it was then, to the new king. As you would probably expect, being the recipient of what would be now worth probably well in excess of £100,000, made the king very happy, and he rewarded the new mayor of Norwich with a knighthood. Now, that sort of money, back in 1660, according to the National Archives site, would have purchased the following: 156 horses, 185 cows, 1,250 stones of wool, 261 quarters of wheat, and it would have paid the wages for 14,285 days of a skilled tradesman. Not a bad little gift, eh? But Strangers' Hall was much associated with the mayors of Norwich, but some did not want the role as mayor, because it involved not just the managerial part of the job, but once the mayor was elected, he, and yes, it would have been a he, was expected to throw a party of epic proportions, sometimes lasting in excess of 3 days, for other important luminaries, and even Joe Blogg's public himself may have been invited. This would have been a costly affair, which meant some prospective mayors would do anything to stay purely prospective, as they didn't want to be made bankrupt by throwing the mother of all bashes. That's a historical term for you. A mother of all bashes. From around 1748, it became a residence for those judges visiting to preside over the assizes. But its diversity of use didn't end there. Oh no. One of Norwich's most famous claims to fame, or tourist taglines, is that the city had a church for every week of the year and a pub for every day. So over 52 churches and over 365 public houses. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case, but it certainly would have been towards the end of the 1800s, when the hall was a presbytery for the Catholic priests who were practising at the nearby St John's Madder Market, which actually lies just behind the hall. Interesting, no? The hall then started to fall into disrepair until it was purchased, or some say rescued, by local solicitor Leonard Bolingbroke, and in 1922 he donated it to the people of Norwich as a museum dedicated to social history. If you go to visit now, and I would strongly recommend you do, as I'm sure Gemma would, who's in the chat room right now. This is just to see if you're actually listening to what I'm saying, Gemma, or if you've actually fallen asleep already, as I haven't been able to send you any Red Bull or feed you the Haribo, like we talked about. Sorry, bit of an in-joke. It's really unprofessional, is it, cracking an in-joke while I'm talking? But anyway, many of the artefacts displayed there were actually part of Bolingbroke's private collection, and all part of his generous bequeathment to the city. But who were the strangers? Well, officially it comes from anyone who was not a member of the city's community, and could mean English people from outside Norwich as much as other nationalities. However, it was in the 16th century that the word became synonymous with the influx of people into Norwich from the Low Counties, who were fleeing religious persecution. Oh, I'm glad you're listening, Jem. Would you say visit Strangers' Hall? Would you tell people to visit Strangers' Hall if they're in Norwich? I know I would. Anyway, the first groups of strangers were invited by name and a letter by the then Norwich mayor and then owner of Strangers' Hall, Thomas Southerton, who I mentioned earlier, explained the situation. He basically identified that the Norfolk trade of weaving worsted was losing its dominance in the market due to competition from the work produced in Flanders. At the same time, a lot of Dutch Calvinists were being persecuted for heresy by the Duke of Alva, one of the Catholic Spaniard rulers, and Elizabeth I, seeing not only a way of basically sticking her fingers up to the Catholics and the Spanish. Don't forget, this was a short while after her half-sister had murdered hundreds of Protestants during her short 5-year reign, which the Protestant Elizabeth hadn't ever forgotten. She held out a hand of invitation to those workers to come to Norwich and a couple of other cities in the UK, and allowed for 30 skilled tradesmen and their families, with a limit of up to 300, to come and settle themselves in Norwich. It didn't take long for these Dutch and Walloons to teach the locals how to make their cloth, and the trade began to boom again. Thank you, Gemma. I'm glad you agree with me. Although the whole idea of anti-immigration isn't new to the 20th century or even the 21st century, in 1567, the then mayor, Thomas Wall, did incite a mini anti-immigration riot by insinuating that the immigrants had begun to suck the livelihoods of the locals away. That sound familiar to anyone? And in 1570, the then equivalent of some of today's racist anti-immigration groups tried to attack those refugees, but were swiftly curtailed, and the ringleaders of the attack were executed. Sounds like their sort of attitude to things like anti-immigration riots and racism was better 500 years ago, but anyway. In 1620, the Dutch and Walloon numbered around 4,000, which was a quarter of Norwich's population at that time. In fact, the Dutch influence in Norwich is still strong, as is the French influence from 300 or so years earlier, with what most towns would call a square being known as a plain in Norwich: St Andrew's Plain, Bank Plain, St Martin's Palace Plain, to name but 3. The word plain actually derives from the Dutch word plen, which is the Dutch word for, you guessed it, square. There you go. Norwich is also home of the Canaries, Norwich City Football Club. The association of Norwich with these little yellow birds also comes from the strangers of the 16th century. The Low Country weavers would have kept and bred these little feathered friends to have kept them company whilst they worked, and the habit migrated to Norwich when they moved there. Now, my parents have lived in Norwich for 40-odd years, and my mum's pretty savvy on history. She's been to most places. She didn't know that. She was all bored when I said, "Do you want to give me? I'll give you a history lesson on Norwich, Mum. Bet you didn't know this." And she's hoping it'll come up in a pub quiz at some point, I think. There you go. And that's just a couple of ways that these refugees affected the city of Norwich. But this influx of wealth and prosperity may well not have been possible without the foresight of Queen Elizabeth I to formally invite them to Norwich, and the generosity of Thomas Southerton of allowing them to stay in his beautiful home, now known to all as Strangers' Hall. There you go. Let's take a quick little break, and then we'll come in with my interview with Gemma from Fright Nights Cambridge. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
And we're back. Now, for the second half of our Strangers' Hall show, I've been joined by our good friend and the owner, I suppose, of Fright Nights. Is it East Anglia now or Cambridgeshire still?
We are now known as Fright Nights Cambridgeshire and East Anglia.
Oh, okay. Ms. Gemma Snow of Fright Nights Cambridgeshire and East Anglia,
yes,
is with us. Oh, God, blimey. You don't want to make things complicated for me, do you?
It's quite a long name, actually, isn't it?
Isn't it just? It is getting a bit longer. What are you going for next? Which counties are you going to go for next?
I don't know. I quite like the idea of Scotland, but that's a bit out of the way for me.
Well, most of you will know Gemma from the other shows she's done with this Hinching. I can't even speak now. Hinchingbrooke being one of them. But I was lucky enough to join. I'm going to call you Fright Nights Cambridge. Sorry, just to
yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
The show Fright Nights Cambridge at Strangers Hall in Norwich last month. So we'll be recounting experiences that we both had because I think we only did one part of the investigation together, wasn't it? Most things I was doing separately and Gemma was doing separately. But what was your first impression of Strangers Hall, Gem?
It's a really amazing place. You come into it, you don't realise how big it is. You come through a little gate. You don't really see it from the road at the front. You come through a little gate into a courtyard, and then you go into the front door, and you're immediately in the Great Hall, and it's quite an impressive room. There's like high ceilings and big paintings, and when I first went in there on the night that we did the ghost hunt, I had taken all my things in and settled down, and I was having a cup of tea and chatting with the staff there, and straight away I heard some footsteps above me. So that was and I said, "Did you hear that?" And and everyone else had heard it as well. So whether or not it was like the building settling, but it did to me sound like footsteps, and it was in the area that a figure's been seen. Yeah. Well, I know talking to the staff, they say when they sit at their desk is kind of, as you come into the Great Hall, their desk is at one end of it, and then as you go up the far end, it's where they've got the sort of the big banqueting table, and they've got that really old furniture, and then you've got the stairs up to, I think they go up to sort of the Great Chamber and all of that stuff. They say they frequently hear footsteps over their heads when they're sitting at that desk. Yeah, on the balcony. That's where the
landing area. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They've heard footsteps going across above them. Yeah. And apparently they have seen a dark figure coming out of the door and going across to the other side of the landing. Yeah. It is one of those places. It's deceptive, like you say. As you walk in from the street, it just looks like an old sort of oldie worldy shop front, doesn't it? And you've got this quite lovely Tudor door, but you just think, well, it just looks like a sort of 2 up, 2 down terrace from the road. And then you walk through this door into this courtyard, and as you say, you've got the steps up. And then once you're in the Great Hall, even that, I sort of walked in and I thought, there's not a lot to this. Because you can see the balcony with the rooms off the balcony. But then you start exploring, and it's like the Doctor's TARDIS. I know, it's endless,
isn't it? It's endless, isn't it? You go into one room, and then there's a corridor off that room to another room, and then there's another bit up to another bit. And I think they said there's something like 30-odd rooms in total, but the public only has access to sort of 12 or 13. The rest of them are shut up because there's no fire escape or anything, so they can't allow
it's health
the general public into them. And it's just kind of mind-blowing, really, when you think what could be behind those doors. So the activity started for you before any of us had even arrived.
Yes, it did,
We all started arriving about 7:30, 7:45 sort of time. Well, I kind of arrived a little bit early and used my favouritism to get in because I was cold.
You were cold, yeah.
It was very cold. It did
snow that night, actually,
yeah. It did. It was very cold. And I got chatting to the lovely Amy, who I think manages the place, who was so... did you find with all the staff, they were so giving of their knowledge and experiences?
Oh, yeah.
Weren't they amazing?
Yeah, they were wonderful, really great.
I can't rate them high enough. If you want to go there, just they are so knowledgeable and have got so much things to tell you and stories to tell you and experiences. They're amazing.
That's right, and the ghost, they've quite keen on telling you what's happened to them in the past on different ghost hunts that they've had there.
Yeah.
And
which isn't many.
Lee,
they've not had many there at all.
They haven't had many, though. But Lee, one of the guys that came into my first vigil, he was telling me that he feels like the spirits almost know him, and he's had a lot of interaction on the few ghost hunts that they've done before. He's had a lot of interaction, and he thinks it's because the spirits are trying to tell him that that they know that he's there, and that he knows that they're there.
Yeah. Well, he actually used to work for the museums. He left, and he I think he works for one of the local schools now because it was more money. But he used to work for Norfolk Museums, if it's the same guy I'm thinking of, and he actually used to work at Norwich Castle as well. Yeah. And he was telling me stories about things that happened at Norwich Castle when he'd be doing the lock-up last thing at night that were quite interesting. But they were all very, very giving, very, very wanting to learn and teach you stuff, which I thought was brilliant. Yeah. But I know I had an experience very, very early on. I think it was, I don't know whether you guys were doing the medium walkthrough or whether it was before even that. As people were arriving, I went exploring with the museum's permission, and I went down to the Undercroft. And the Undercroft is kind of like, it's got a big sort of stone vaulted ceiling, hasn't it? And and I thought, oh, this is really lovely. And then I noticed there's a window at the end which looked out onto the courtyard. So I wandered up to this window thinking, oh, it's really lovely. Yeah. And noticed there's another corridor off. And I thought, oh, let's go and explore. I know my way back. They know where I am. And as I'm walking through this corridor to the next room, which I think was what they call the Southerton room, I heard a noise. And the noise was kind of like clink, 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 clink. Like if you can imagine someone's got a load of old coins in their hand and they're dropping them into the other hand, sort of going clink, clink, clink. Yeah. And I thought, that's a bit strange. And I went to sort of see if I could see anything that could have made that noise, whether it was water dripping on metal. Couldn't find anything. And I thought, well, maybe it's just one of those things. They're already talking to me as well. And I went back upstairs and I was talking to, I think it was Amy actually, and she said, oh, did you experience anything? I said, well, I heard a strange noise down there. I don't know if you can... What was that area used for? Being the Southerton room. And she went, oh, that would have been the counting house where they counted the money and the accountant stored the money. Yeah. Really? And when I told her what I'd heard, she said, yeah, we've heard money being moved around in there before. And that was before we'd even started doing anything proper. Yes, that was just people starting to arrive. So, even before the investigation started properly,
we had some activity. We were
getting the activity starting. So, did you do any investigations down in that part, like the Southerton room and the bit that led on to where the carriages were?
No, we were down there towards the end of the night. But my vigils were actually all based in the Walnut room.
Okay.
So I was in the Walnut room. The medium, Kevin Cornwell, he was in the Great Chamber, which is one of the upstairs rooms, and then they were doing divination and table tipping downstairs in the Undercroft. Right. So, but yeah, I was mainly up in the Walnut room. Okay. And I had some amazing things happen up there.
It was an interesting room, wasn't it?
You
liked that room, didn't you?
I really liked that room.
I found it quite claustrophobic.
No, I didn't find it claustrophobic. I think it was added during the 17th century, this room.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a green chair in the room that I don't know if it's linked to the spirit that's been seen coming out and onto the landing, and with the footsteps coming across. But supposedly, if people sit in this green chair, they get quite strong feelings.
Well, that room was added, according to my notes, I'm not this good, I don't remember this, but that was added in 1627 for the Mayor of Norwich, one Francis Cock.
Francis Cock.
Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that with a straight face, that his name was Francis Cock.
I can't believe that you got a straight face.
You can't see me, can you? But yeah, that room was added in 1627 for the then Mayor of Norwich, one Francis Cock.
And I believe that it probably... They don't know what all the rooms were used for. They've just set them up as they see fit. But I think that they believe that this was just a private family room.
I would say the vibes I got from it was kind of like a desk room, like a study type room that he would have read important papers. That was the vibe I got from it. But it was quite an active room. Even the sort of 45 minutes I did in there. I don't know what else you had happen when you were in there, but we had you'd remember this. We had a motion sensor underneath this beautiful sort of desk table that was in there. That just kept going off, and no one was near it. And we tried getting it to go off at other times.
By moving up to it, and it didn't go off.
Well, I think I was the one crawling across the floor trying to see if I could trigger it. And it wouldn't. But then all of a sudden it was, and we got the that wheel, the Eggley wheel. We got that going as well. We got the spirit box, the PSB 7, talking to us. There was 3 different voices, if I remember rightly, that kept coming through. There was a male, a woman, and a younger girl. And we got them repeating. There was people's names got repeated. And then I think it was after about 5th or 6th person, the male voice said, "Had enough," or go. It was wasn't it had enough or fed up now or something like that. And then just stopped talking to us.
Yeah, and actually it's funny you say that, because you were the second vigil group in the room, and I had similar activity with the first group. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. But the last vigil group, not so much. So, and I do remember it clearly said "had enough now." So I think maybe we exhausted him. But the first vigil group that went in. Again, with the motion sensor, that was going off for no apparent reason. And I asked the group if anybody wanted to sit in the green chair. And everyone was a little bit nervous. But one of the guys said that offered to sit in the chair. I think it was called Martin. He had to sit down, and he was having a bit of a giggle, which is fine. He was enjoying himself. And... so he was sitting there, and then I was getting the equipment out and the spirit box, and so we were introducing ourselves and asking spirit if they could repeat our name back to us. So the first lady that I gave it to, she introduced herself as Louise and said, "Please, can you say Louise?" And very clearly we all heard it say Louisa. So that, but the strange thing was, the medium Kevin, who was in the Great Chamber, apparently his group picked up on the name Louisa during the same vigil, with a different group. So that was quite interesting. Now, the man sitting in the chair, I'd asked him a couple of times, how are you feeling? And he said he wasn't feeling anything. I'd just got out the thermal imaging camera, and the people to my left were having a look, and they were directing it towards him. And at the same time, can I swear?
Yeah, you can swear, yeah.
He said... so he'd been sitting there, quietly, and then all of a sudden he said, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah.
And apparently something had touched the back of his head and his neck, like something had pulled his hair and touched his neck. And at the same as that happened, the people to my left who had the thermal imaging camera said, "Oh, what's that?" And they'd seen on an image of something behind the chair to his right, like something tall, and then it kind of shrunk and disappeared into the floor at the same time that he said that he'd felt something touch him.
See, my impression of that room was that there was someone pacing up and down who was getting quite frustrated. I got that impression quite early on, and that it was a child who was playing under the table with the Egley wheel.
Yeah,
because
that would explain the motion sensor going off, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Because when I was when I was trying to get them to make the wheel spin, if I talked almost like I would to my children myself, like, go on, you can do it, go on, it was going. Yeah. Yeah. But if I talked in a more adult voice, it stopped.
Wouldn't react, yeah.
And it did. Whereas when I sat up and came out from under it sounds weird. You'd have had to been there to sort of picture what I was doing. But when I sat back upright, more grown up, I just got this feeling of someone who was quite like, come on, get on with it, come on, I've got stuff to do, kind of, not nasty, but quite sort of businesslike almost was the impression that I was getting from that room.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just found it. I did find it was starting to get a bit claustrophobic in there, but that could have been because of the dark walls, because it is all dark wood.
It was quite a small room, and everything was really dark there. Yeah.
But I do remember that the woman in our group who was sitting in that chair, she said she felt something brush her neck at one point.
Yeah.
And she said she kept feeling her feet go cold, but then again, I think that was the floorboards, because I was lying on them and I could feel cold coming through them as well.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing in that room, though, is I had a K2, and when I moved it, it started spiking.
Right.
And I think was it you who suggested? I think it was you who said, check along the floor, there could be a cable. And as I moved it the direct line, it spiked the whole way, but I moved it off that line and it stopped. So it just goes to prove that you can't accept everything. You do have to sort of check things. But I know with the Egley wheel, it was definitely spinning at times, and then it would back off, and then you'd encourage it to spin again. So to me, it looked like a young child playing.
Well, Kevin picked up on the spirit of a little girl during one of his vigils. He told me that, yes, he said that he could see her standing at the end of a baby's crib, and they so he put a K2 into the crib to see if he could get some kind of reaction,
right?
And apparently that worked really well. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, I mean, you didn't go into the great excuse me, you didn't go into the Great Chamber.
No,
I was in there sort of with Kevin on one of his vigils, and this room was possibly where I had my. I mean, I was having experiences all night, but it's where I had one of my strangest experiences that I've had in a long time. But this room, the Great Chamber, it's a beautiful room. It's got a big fireplace at one end, and I believe it was part of the extension that was built for Sir Joseph Payne, who was the mayor from, I think it's about 1960 to 1967 of Norwich. And Joseph Payne himself, he was married to Emma, and he was actually a royalist when everyone else was parliamentarians. But he was quite popular. But he was the one who was always pro the monarchy, and when the monarchy re-rose, he rode all the way to London to give Charles II £1,000, which back then would have been about 100, 200,000. So I would say he was quite a... whether he was as nice at home as he was to everyone else, I don't know.
Right,
I don't know. Because he was obviously a pretty sort of, this is my way and this is the way I'm going to follow kind of person.
Yeah.
But I can't find a lot about him. But the interesting thing was, in this room, when I kind of was helping the group for this one, so I decided to sit near the door so I could make sure, everyone was okay.
You could get out first if anything happened.
Yeah, right. You know me, I'll be running towards it. In fact, the story I'm going to tell you at the end of this, you'll blooming well agree. I tend to run towards these things. No, it was more to check everyone had got in okay, so I counted everyone in before I shut the door, checked everyone was okay, you know, as Kevin's starting his thing. And Kevin kept telling us he could feel two real energies in this room. There was a very kind lady and a male energy that wasn't as nice, but everyone thought he was amazing, but he actually wasn't as amazing as people think. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said here, but that's more or less it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, on this investigation we did, I think nearly every single guest we had there was a newbie.
Were new?
Yeah.
Yes,
never experienced anything.
They all knew, yeah. I think they were all, actually were all
I think there was two who'd investigated. One had done Gresson Hall with a Most Haunted event.
Oh, that's right, yes, yeah.
And there was one other who'd done something, but when I quizzed it, it was more to do with, she'd done like seances at her spiritualist church, but never a full-blown investigation. But most of them had never experienced anything, which I like, because, you know, it's quite nice to see people experience stuff for the first time and they either freak out or become completely enamoured with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were all crowded over one side of this beautiful room, and I'd been sitting near the door, and I had a feeling, as Kevin's talking, I was like, Kevin, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to move. I want to go and sit near the fireplace. And I don't know why, I just felt drawn to this fireplace. And he was saying about this female energy, and he was saying someone is actually sitting in the room. Again, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of someone is sitting in the room where she sits and does her sewing or embroidery or something along those lines.
Right, yeah.
And I was sitting there and I felt myself start to rock, like quite violently rock, like I'm in a rocking chair. Now, he hadn't told me where this woman was sitting, but he said somebody is experiencing what she experiences right now. They're sitting exactly where she sits.
Yeah.
And I, believe it or not, I'm actually not an attention junkie. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. So and it's pitch black in this room. And I said to Kevin, is she in a rocking chair? And he was like, I don't know. I can't actually see. All I know is she's sitting in a chair. That's what I can see. And I'm thinking, this is strange. He goes, oh, she's moved now. And I stopped. I stopped rocking.
Wow. Right, yeah.
And I thought maybe I'd just imagined that. Maybe it was just because of the dark, changing your equilibrium and all that stuff. I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, she seemed to attach to one of the ladies, and they were starting to get quite freaked because they kept feeling cold on their hands. And he said, oh, she's moving around the room now. She's near. And I said, she's at the fireplace, isn't she? Because I felt like my hand, sort of a cold, brush my hand and then brush the side of my cheek. And he went, yeah, she is. She's right next to you. I was like, no, I can feel her. And he goes, right, she's moving around the room again. She's checking on all of you. It's a very caring, nurturing energy. And that was exactly what I felt. I didn't feel someone who, she was just checking we're all okay. Almost in a sort of a almost like a throwing up kind of way, showing us her love. That's the only way I can think of putting it. Very gentle, very caring, very sort of angelic, almost. And he said she's trying to keep the male energy away because he's not so nice. Right. And by this point, I mean, I'd been sort of keeping my eye on the clock and everything, and my back was starting to ache, so I lay down for a while in front of the fireplace. And I like to shut my eyes occasionally in a room just to hear the room, just to sort of, not to go to sleep. I just like to take on board how it feels, like forget my eyes, just. And when I open my eyes, there is this shadow, dark black shadow, coming towards me. And I'm sort of half lying down, half sitting up, thinking, what is that? There's no light in this room. There's no lights gone on. I haven't looked at a light, so I wouldn't have my eyes. You know, there's no, and it is coming towards me, and it did feel quite. I don't want to say it was going to hurt me.
Right.
But it was a bit like if you get a dog growling at you, you've got two choices. You either front up to it or you get scared. And that was what it
make
felt
you feel
like.
A bit nervous, yeah.
Actually, it made me feel I wanted to fight because I kind of was like, you felt a bit like a bully.
Yeah.
But.
And you wanted to stand up to him.
Yeah. So I did kind of mentally front up to it. And I was, all at the time, I'm trying to look to see, is it the chair no, it's not a chair throwing the shadow. There's no light for this shadow. And this shadow was moving, coming closer and closer towards me. And it was at that point Kevin said, the male spirit is back and he's trying to intimidate someone. Again, all words to that effect. I can't remember it, but all I know is this dark shadow was coming towards me and getting bigger as it came towards me. And I just thought, no, I am not moving. You're not scaring me out of here. But it was.
Did you say anything at the time to anybody?
No. The reason being, and it wasn't just me wanting it all for myself, a lot of people in the group were starting to get quite nervous and quite sort of... they were wanting to get out of there because of her touching their hands and stuff. Whereas, I was trying to get them to. At the same time, I'm trying to say to them, "Why are you scared? It is a nice energy." Kevin's right. But I thought if I start saying there's a bloody great shadow looming over me, I think you would have seen a mass exodus of the room, and I didn't want to spoil their experience because I was handling it.
Yeah.
But it's one of the weirdest things I've ever had happen, to see this shadow. And I am looking for what could be throwing this shadow, and there is nothing. There's no light coming into the room. There's no lights on. The chair wasn't... I checked afterwards. The chair wouldn't have been big enough to do it. Yeah, and it was moving towards me. And it did feel quite... Like I say, not that it was going to hurt me, but just trying to intimidate me to move. And maybe someone else would have moved. I don't intimidate that easily. But afterwards, Kevin told me that I was sitting exactly where he'd seen the woman doing her sewing. And he thought it was interesting that was the bit I was drawn to.
Oh, brilliant.
But no, I didn't mention the shadow to the group because I think most of them it would have... Their first experience, quite a few of them were getting a bit unnerved already because they hadn't learnt the difference between positive and not so positive. Which comes eventually for a lot of people. People do once they open their mind to it, they can normally tell.
And people just don't know what to expect at all, do they? When they go along for the first time, and it can be a bit unnerving.
I was quite enjoying having my hand when my hand was touched and my face was touched because it did feel really calming, very maternal, very caring. But this shadow didn't. This shadow did feel kind of very... This is my room. What are you doing?
Very dominating,
Which is the wrong thing to do to me.
Well, perhaps it's a room I'll have to try and spend some more time in the next time we're there.
Oh, definitely. There was definitely there's definitely two different vibes in that room.
Yeah.
But it was a very interesting one. It was a very interesting one.
But I do think that there aren't any more, areas that are more active than other areas. I think that they do get a lot of activity all through the building.
Yeah. Well, they told me sort of off the record that they've come in and they've had things been moved that they've set out when nobody's been there. They've had doors unlock themselves that they've locked shut. They've had motion sensors going off in rooms, thinking that they've left a window open. Nothing's moved. There's nothing in there. They'd need at least a bird or something like that to have flown in.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
To set them off, but things have set the alarms off. All things that, if you have video cameras set up 24/7, you could probably see what's going on. But they do say they've had an awful lot of unexplained stuff. But none of it felt nasty to them. It's more sort of just business. It's just things happening. Because I don't think Strangers' Hall has anything in its past that is violent, or if anything, it's a very benevolent place. It's a very kind of happy-go-lucky place. All the parties that have been there and putting up the strangers in the 16th century so they could work there, and so it's probably got quite a nice.
Well, they would have
vibe.
hosted lots of the city ceremonies and events there.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It did. The only thing I really disliked there was the Lord Mayor's carriage downstairs in the carriage room. I did not like that thing. I found it very... there was something quite dark. I mean, it is black, but there was something quite dark about it. And I did see shadows moving around it that I couldn't explain.
Well, lots of people said that they didn't like it down there. They felt odd down there. And
I didn't mind the room. It was that carriage. I did not like that carriage. And it was interesting that when I was doing a spirit board with some of the guests, they were sort of asking the typical questions that people who are just starting out ask. And I just got the impression that the person who was talking to us was a young lad.
Right.
Young boy. Not a young boy, but a sort of, not a teenager, kind of in between, like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I asked, are you a sort of an adolescent type boy? And the answer was yes. And then I just said, they were all saying, did you live here? Did you work here? No. And they were like, what are you to do with here? And I just said, are you to do with that carriage? Yes. And someone said, oh, did you work for the Lord Mayor? No. And then I just came out with, did the carriage run you over? Yes. Quite a bit more happened. Every time we asked a question, we'd hear a tap, double tap, just before the answer would come, which was quite interesting. But I don't think it was the carriage room, the room that carriage is in, that was the problem.
No.
It's that particular carriage, because I really did not like it. And it's not actually, doesn't actually belong to the museum. They look after
the Lord Mayor. No, it's just stored there. Yes, yeah.
Because I know some of the people in our group were kind of finding it hard to understand how a spirit could be there that didn't live in the house or whatever. And Linda and I were trying to explain that it can get attached to objects.
Yes.
A spirit doesn't always have to have lived in a place. It could be attached to one of the pieces of furniture that Bolingbroke had collected. It could be attached, say I got the feeling quite strongly that this young lad had been killed by the carriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously I have not been able to find out if I can't find out if that's true or not.
No.
It's not the sort of thing that would probably go in the press anyway, even back then, because it wouldn't have looked good on the mayor. But this lad he seemed to want to talk to me, because when I left the table so that somebody else could have a go, and he just stopped talking to them. And then when I came back, they said, did you want to carry on talking to Penny? He went straight to yes.
Mm.
So he obviously had a story to tell.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing was, the next group, I think, down there got somebody completely different come through. A grown male who, I think his name was Dutch. Not his name was Dutch, but his name was from the Netherlands area.
Right.
He could have been one of the strangers there.
Yes, yeah.
So it's an incredibly active place. It's amazing.
Oh, it is incredibly active.
So are you going back? The Fright Night's going back?
Yes, we're going back on the 1st of December.
Oh, nice.
So, yes, so really looking forward to that. Obviously, it was the first time we were there a few weeks ago, and it was just absolutely wonderful. So really looking forward to going back. And there are tickets left. So,
but not many, I presume.
No, they sold it ever so quickly for the first one that we held there, just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think there's around 15 tickets or so left.
Cool.
For the December one. So yes, so there's still time.
It is an amazing, even just from the history perspective, and trying to explain that it's like a TARDIS inside.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can explain it. It's just all these different eras of building that have gone on, and all these different. I mentioned in my first bit some of the uses, what it's been used for in the past, as best as we know. But it's really.
Yeah, there's lots of different layers of energy there, aren't there? Definitely.
It's a real historical gem. It's And I say, there's so many artefacts in there, and so many pieces of antique furniture, and
they've got a 15th century piece of furniture there.
Yeah, my favourite piece. Yeah. Yeah, it was used to store spices. I can't remember what they called it, but it was not an armoire.
Ambry. What, Ambry? Armoire? Yeah.
It wasn't armoire. I think, you could be right. It was used to store herbs and spices, and
yes,
it's a beautiful piece of furniture. Obviously, you don't touch it, but I got quite close to it, and you just look at all the marks on the wood, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. So you just don't know what you're going to get there, really, because there's just so much stuff. So many people have been passed through the doors, have probably had a party there or lived there, or it's
Well,
really
they think that there was a building there before Strangers' Hall was there. So and that's been there since the 14th century. So
1300s was when the Undercroft was first built. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me with Norwich's history. Norwich does date back a long, long way. Pre the 1300s for definite. So it's just, but if you're ever in Norwich, even just if you're just in Norwich going to music, make sure you go and see Strangers' Hall, because it really is.
Although it's not open every day, so
no, it's only open on Wednesdays and Sundays, I believe, to the public.
I think so. Yeah.
But it's definitely well worth a visit if you're there on one of those days. And
100%.
it's in the centre of town as well, so you haven't got to walk far. It's an absolutely stunning place. I'm so glad we got the chance to investigate there. So, thank you so much.
Oh no, it was really great to have you.
Yeah, it was fascinating. So, what else have you got coming up over the next few weeks? What other places?
We have, in a couple of weeks, we're going to Gresson Hall Workhouse.
Oh, love it there. Love it there.
So excited about that one. And then Langard Fort in Felixstowe.
Yep. Which I'm going to be at.
Which you're coming to. Yes.
I'm doing the history bit for you, aren't I? The history tour beforehand.
Yes. Yeah.
See if I can send everyone to sleep before they start.
No, you wouldn't do that. I better bring my Red Bull.
I'll just feed you. If you sit there like a seal, I'll just throw Haribo in your mouth while I'm talking to keep you going.
Okay, that's a good deal. So that's really going to be a good weekend.
And are there tickets left for either of those?
Gresson Hall's sold out, but we do have a few tickets left for Langard. I think there's 6 tickets left.
6, okay.
Yes.
Cool. And anywhere exciting coming up for the rest of the year that's a first that you can tell us about?
Well, we are doing a haunted weekend. The first one's in June, and that's in Colchester. So there's 2 nights of ghost hunting. The first night is at the Town Hall in Colchester, which is a new venue for us. And then the second night is at the Colchester Castle and the museum next door, Holly Trees Museum.
Wow, okay.
And then you can stay at the Brook Red Lion Hotel, which is
the Red Lion. Wow,
yes,
wow. So that's four investigations almost.
Yes, so I'm really looking forward to that one.
Ah, nice.
And then we've got some of our old regular venues coming up as well. In next month we've got St Neots Museum and Oliver Cromwell's house. Yeah, they're both very good. So and lots more on the website if you want to have a look. And
definitely go and follow Fright Nights Cambridgeshire on Facebook. Go and look on the website, and if you have got any queries, just drop them a message, and they will get back to you as soon as they can. Well, thank you ever so much for your time again tonight, Gemma. I really appreciate it. And say Strangers' Hall, I'm not being paid to say this, but it was definitely a night to remember. It was an amazing place with it was just amazing, full stop, really.
Yeah, agree with you. Yeah,
I can't think of any other word to describe it. So if you do want to do an investigation at Strangers' Hall, get in touch with Fright Nights Cambridgeshire, because December, and they've still got a few tickets left for it. is the next one there. Don't miss out on that one if you get a chance to, because it really will blow your mind. I'm sure we'll be speaking to Gemma again soon. I think we're going to do a show on Highlands House in a couple of months to talk about our experiences there, because that was another quite active evening, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, that was another really great place. Yeah,
it was another really great, with such a hilarious history to it when you dig into it with the SAS side of things. But on that note, thanks ever so much again, Gemma. I really appreciate your time tonight, and thank you everyone else for listening to Haunted Histories on Parasearch Radio. Don't forget, shows on 6 nights of the week, and every single one of our shows is available on Spreaker, on YouTube. If you've, dare I say it, missed it when it went out, I won't hold you to ransom for that, but do go and have a listen to it. And really, it just leaves me to say is have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.